stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, gentlemen. Approval of the county board minutes.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Not carried. Any additions or deletions?
There are none.
There's no additions or deletions.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion, got a second?
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, passed. Mississippi Headwaters, come on up.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, for having me here today.
Yeah.
I've been thinking so.
Today I want to talk a little bit about an easement and acquisition program that we will be administering this year. That
You want to state your name? You didn't tell us your name, did you?
Oh, Tim Terrell, Mississippi
All right.
Headwaters Board. And we'll
Good
be...
morning, Tim.
Good morning. We'll be talking about an easement and acquisition program that we'll be administering this year to protect the first 400 miles of the Mississippi River. But before I talk about that, I just want to give a little recap about our Moving the Needle. Of course, last year I talked a little bit about this and presented it to you. One of the made three initiatives, one of it was to protect the Mississippi River, and that's what we're going to talk about today. The next one was to talk a little bit about stormwater and getting stormwater plans in cities, major cities, and actually I think it's all the 11 cities on the Mississippi River, and also aquatic invasive species and our infomercials. I'm happy to report to you that we did receive grants for all these initiatives. In fact, every grant that I've applied for, we've been able to receive as a board. So, and that's through the help of a lot of other people helping us and do that. That total is around 3.5, 3.6 million that can be planned to come to this area. So aquatic invasive species, those are the infomercials that we're playing. They're on our website if you want to take a look at them. Well, hopefully that's going to be very good. The stormwater cities. Not only did we get the stormwater plans in all the cities on the Mississippi River, but now we're starting implementation. So that whole process is starting. And that's really exciting to see, not just planning, but actually best management practices to help clean up and protect the river. And this is what I'm here to talk to you about, is about the moving the needle concept. You might remember last year that you, as Morrison County, helped sign a resolution to support the Mississippi Headwaters Board application to the Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Council. This was the grant that helped gave us about we're scheduled to receive about 3.15 million from them this year in July. So I just wanted to kind of go through specifically the background and how we got there. The purpose is to protect to protect the natural values of the Mississippi River, habitat, and clean water. The priority areas are the Mississippi River, the headwaters, lakes, and reservoirs, and connecting corridors and tributaries. And of course, my board really talked about this, and we decided that we'll give most of the highest ranking points closest in proximity to those priority areas, adjacent to other protected lands, so we don't want a 40 that we acquisition or put an easement on in the middle of nowhere. And then also provide, if it gets lots of points, if it provides access or other access to public land. So we're kind of working in a systematic way there. One of the things that, next slide, we applied for it in 2012 and then we received we applied for it in June of 2015 for an outdoor heritage grant. You as a county supported that, and I think that was very instrumental. I mean, I think that was the reason why we got the money that we did, and that was very supportive of you, and it really made a difference. The council members said, I can't believe you got all these counties to sign on to this. So that was pretty amazing step for all of us. And then of course we're recommended for funding for July of 2016 by the legislature. Now this program, as I said before, it consists of an acquisition and easement program. And for acquisitions, counties will have input and approval at the beginning and end of the process. That's a little new there because it's not necessarily required by law that every acquisition go before a county board. Our Mississippi Headwaters Board said we want to do that. So that puts you in the driver's seat and the decision making. So next slide here. So real quickly about easements, they protect the land by enrolling willing landowners into permanent conservation easements. Your soil and water conservation districts will work with willing landowners to protect the river. And I have to put in a little plug in for Morrison SWCD. Helen did a great job. We've patterned our easement program after what you're familiar with, Camp Ripley, ACUB, because that process is very established and well. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to work with something that works. And then the willing landowner retains possession of the land. Some things to understand about easements. The landowner, because they own the land, they have the ability to restrict hunting and fishing. And also, they must pay taxes on the land, so that's probably good news for you guys. But so that doesn't happen. But the next slide, though, we talk about fee acquisition, and we brought some partners in. The difference here is the willing landowner agrees to sell his land to permanently protect the land. The owner will either be the county, or it will be the Department of Natural Resources. Once again, as I get to the last slide, you'll understand in the process that you'll be making the decision. And county taxes, as you're well familiar with, are replaced with a PILT payment. So, next slide. So this is kind of the process that I kind of wanted to get to. We have a LaSard application out there, and we apply for it every year, and we have what's called an eligibility list. And that eligibility list is generated from landowners who are potentially interested in selling their land. Now notice this is for acquisition. That's the track that we're talking about. So about in July, we'll get a call from the Outdoor Heritage Council saying, okay, now you can start spending money and start looking at this stuff. At that time, we will take that eligibility list and we'll send out to the MHB board, the Department of Natural Resources, land commissioners. It would actually be in your county. It would be Amy Kowalczyk, because you don't have a land commissioner. Kowalczyk?
Amy Kowalczyk, yes, who's
Oh,
listening
there she
intently
is.
on home.
Hey, did I get that right? Okay.
Close.
Okay.
Kinda, sorta close.
I'll just say Amy. And then, and county commissioners and township boards. We'll just send that out, and it will just be a notification. Doesn't mean that everybody on that list is going to receive funding. It just means there's a potential. And then what will happen is we'll go before, we have 10 people on the list right now. So we'll go to the home counties where those people are located in, and we'll go to your county board meeting, and we'll just kind of move forward with an approval process. You will be able to look at it. You'll know where it's located at. Maybe you'll know some civic issues. You know what? We're going to be looking at things from a conservation issue. You guys look at things from a civic issue. So maybe there's some red flags, or maybe it's a gray parcel. Whatever, you will be the decision makers that stress the point that we can move forward with the process. That's very key right there, because if you want to stop it and you say, no, that's not good for whatever reason, that's great. You cut it, and then we move on to another one. So it's there's the county decision making at the beginning right there. So you'll direct Amy to go over there and look at who should own the land. Should it be the county? Should it be the Department of Natural Resources? That's where your or Amy will look at and maybe make a determination. This would probably be best fitted for this, or for the DNR, or for the county. Then what we'll do is we'll get our project or our technical committee, and we'll rank all the applications, all 10 of them. Who's the first? Generally, this process works that you have maybe 10 people interested. After you talk to them, maybe you actually got 5 willing to sign a piece of paper saying, okay, I'm really serious about it, let's move forward. And then you only have money for about 2 or 3. So that's kind of how the process works, but you'll be able to see it all. And so after we rank them, we'll find out who it is, and then we kind of go to the technical side of things where our partner, which will be Trust for Public Land, they will do the appraisal, the title search, negotiate the sale with the seller, and the landowner has a choice if he wants to move forward. Then the final process, and this is the county board decision at the very end, is the parcel is brought back to the home county for a final full board vote. So this is an opportunity and this is the place where you'll know the appraisal, you'll know if it's going to the Department of Natural Resources, the exact PILT payment, you'll know all of it. So you know a little bit at the beginning, and you kind of estimate what the cost is at the beginning, but you know it at the beginning, and you'll know all the facts at the very end. So to make an intelligent decision. And we want to keep you informed of the process. And then, of course, if it's going through the Department of Natural Resources, they get the acceptance of the parcel. So that's kind of the process there. Do you have any questions?
What about people that don't want to sell? They don't need, there's nothing to do with that.
They don't, they're not, they just, there's going to be people, like everybody, you talk to them, and if they're interested, we ask them to sign a piece of paper that says that they're really interested. Otherwise, they don't. We keep moving on.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Zelinski.
I actually have a couple, 2 or 3 questions.
Okay.
Just for clarity, the $3.1 million that you speak of that we're gonna get, we're really not gonna get. It's not just Morrison County. It starts at the start of the, correct me if I'm wrong, please. Starts at the start of the Mississippi and goes through the state of Minnesota, or help me
No,
out
it,
here.
it
Where's
follows the
gonna go?
river all the way to the bottom of Morris County, the first
To the bottom
400
of
miles.
Morrison County.
Right.
Okay,
The first 400 miles.
So-
There happens to be a fantastic map up there.
well, exactly,
Oh.
and I know, but what we're talking about is, that's it. It's all the counties in between that 3.1 million goes to. Now, let's go back to acquisitions again. And I'm not 100% familiar with how the PILT payment continues on. Is PILT a one-time thing? PILT goes on all the time?
Yep, it's a payment that's established and given to the counties at an annual
So,
basis.
if whomever was to acquire a piece of property, and if the property is tax valued at, whomever owns it pays $1,000 a year, would we anticipate that the PILT payment would be $1,000 a year?
No, it typically isn't, and that's the
That's-
bugger. It doesn't
that's kind of a question.
dollar for dollar replace what taxes are or could be. And that's kind of an issue. It's an ongoing debate with PILT in terms of, the intention and the theory is great, but does it actually accomplish what it is that would occur if it were privately owned?
Okay.
You weigh that and you look at it and see
So
if it's worth
if
it.
whomever was to acquire, and whomever, if I understood you right, could be the county,
Right.
could be the state,
And
whomever.
Department of Natural Resources.
Okay.
Those are the only two.
Oh, the only two.
Right.
It's either gonna be owned now by Morrison County,
Right. If you choose that this is not worth the PILT payment,
Yeah.
we think it's better county, situated in the county.
or it is owned by the DNR, should this all go through. Is that correct?
Right.
And then why don't you touch just a little tiny bit more on easements? And I believe I'm pretty familiar with it, but if I'm the owner of said property, I have a lot of control over it if it's an easement. Help me
Yes,
with that.
actually, I used to explain easements in a very simple way. I gave the landowner 2 pencils, and I go, this pencil means that you own the land, and you can do what you can restrict hunting, fishing, you can tell people to get off your property, and this pencil represents your rights on the land, or the use on the land. We just want to buy the use of that land, and we want to keep it in protection in trees, native grasses, whatever is there. So, but you still hold that pencil, and that pencil means that you can restrict hunting and fishing, and you get to pay taxes. So that's just really simple. Easements are pretty quick and easy. They don't affect at the county level. The acquisition is why we had that whole process. And this map just kind of represents the potentials for acquisition right there. Do I expect a lot in Morrison County? In places where there's a lot of cropland, that economic engine is pretty much, people are making good money off the land, they're farming, they're doing that. No, not necessarily. But you start going up the river and you start getting other places, sometimes that PILT payment is more than you can collect in taxes. So once again, it's looking at it. You're effectively evaluating what you know ahead of time. Thank you for those questions.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, Tim, the 10 requests we had, in order to apply for this grant, of this money from the Sarge Sams, we had to have a number of people who wanted to apply for the process. So a list was obtained. So we have 10 applicants that indicated a need. Now, those 10 applicants, none of which are in Morrison County, so at this point. So there isn't really any, and this fee acquisition issue is really about probably putting in public accesses to lakes, the river, wherever, where people can access it. Up in Aiken County, some of those counties have very little access, and they've got these miles and miles of river. So utilizing the resource more, but then acquisitioning land to be able to access the river and use it. So that's more of what it's about, so.
And protecting the values, the natural values of
Yep.
Mississippi River.
Any more discussion? If not, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you
Appreciate
very
you
much.
coming.
Thanks, Tim.
Sheriff's report. Morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Good morning, Sheriff.
How's everybody today?
Phenomenal, thank you.
Thanks for asking.
All right. We'll go over the December monthly report from the Morrison County Sheriff's Office. And if we start on the first page, the total number of complaints that came in for the month of December 2015 was 744. The criminal complaints were 88. You can see 60 of those cases were cleared. And then the non-criminal complaints was 656. Once we get to the next page, we'll do a comparison of the month of December in 2015 as well as the month of December 2014. For civil process, the money collected was $3,150. Going down, we have our drug investigations. You can see we had one controlled buy. We had one controlled substance search warrant, 3 controlled substance agency assists. Of course, that's when we're outside of our jurisdiction, assisting other agencies who belong to the Central Minnesota Drug and Gang Task Force. And then we had 2 possession of controlled substance with methamphetamine. And then the last one is possession of marijuana, drug paraphernalia, and synthetic cannabinoids. And it's just all paired together. It's how they categorize it. Any questions on that?
Mr. Chair, Sheriff, if I may, we see it every month, but we never talk about it.
Yep,
Civil process monies collected.
yep.
Is there a going in the hole on civil process monies collected? I mean, we collect X amount. Should we be collecting more? Can you kind of explain?
Yep.
The
What it-
purpose of collecting for civil process monies?
Sure, Commissioner. So what it is basically we serve papers, the Morrison County Sheriff's Office, on behalf of different law firms and sometimes personnel. So our papers can include statement of claims and summons. It can include divorce decrees. It can include eviction notices. It can include harassment restraining orders and order for protections. All those papers that we serve, we're actually getting paid for. Or I'm sorry, yeah, we're getting paid. We charge the law firms and individuals for our paper service. So basically, that's what we took in for the month was the $3,150 based on our services.
So there's no going in the hole, that's just what it is?
Correct.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yep. For our training, basically, all training, you see in parentheses, training can include Little Falls PD and small towns. Usually for our firearms training and our use of force training at the Sheriff's Office, we do combine the Little Falls Police Department and the small towns being Motley, Randall, Royalton, and Pierce. So if there's any questions on the training. All right, the next page is our criminal complaint. So December 2015, we received 88 criminal complaints, and ICRs is incident crime reports. Basically, the highest percentage you'll see is 17%, and that is our property damage. 14 of those were damage to property at a private residence, and 1 was a damage to property at a business. Moving down, we have
How
our
many of those were mailboxes?
I don't have that breakdown, but 14 being private, I'm sure a lot of those would include mailbox vandalism, but I don't have that breakdown. The 140 traffic citations, you'll see the biggest percentage is 78%. That's gonna be our verbal warnings. So anytime there's a traffic stop, let's say for speed, 78% of them is just a verbal warning, which could include a written warning as well. Any questions on that?
Mr. Chair, so if we start charging everybody you pull over, we could be making a lot of money, couldn't we?
We could, but a lot of it's gonna go to the state as well, a lot of
Okay,
those fees.
Okay,
I think the next ones are two-year comparison. If you look at the graph, the red is gonna be December 2015, the green is gonna be December 2014. The total complaints, including criminal and non-criminal complaints, have gone up in the month of 2015 compared to 2014. And you can see our civil process papers in those 2 months comparison are the same. Our drug investigations went up by 3 cases. And then our total inmates, you can see the average went up because we're housing more inmates right now. Any questions on that graph? The next page, you'll see our total inmates. We'll just kind of look at the average. For Morrison County, we're averaging 44 inmates for the month of December 2015. Becker County, we're averaging 8 inmates. Department of Corrections, it says the average is 0.9. You're probably wondering, how do we average 0.9 inmates? What it is we didn't have that inmate every day during the entire month. So that's why the average is down. And then you'll see Cass County, we averaged a little bit over 11. Monoman County, the same thing, the average is 0.5. Same theory, that inmate wasn't here every day in the entire month. And then our average population for total inmates was 64. If you go to the next page, a little bit about sentence to serve. I'll give you a little bit of what they were working on in the month of December. They were cutting firewood. I think they cut 50 cords of firewood at Camp Ripley, where they actually cut the wood and split it. They've been working at Camp Chaminade, where they've been cleaning the buildings and assisting with cutting and splitting firewood as well. They've been working at the Little Falls Hockey Arena. There they have multiple duties, including cleaning the bleachers and cleaning up the bathrooms. They've been working at the old Crestliner building with Ruby's Pantry. They're basically helping distribute the food to personnel who are showing up and buying the food. And then they've been working at the Fellowship Bible Church just south of Genola. And again, they've been cutting and splitting wood there as well. So the total inmates on STS is 28, and then again, that's the entire total for the month of December. And it's important to point out that now that we've been housing Cass County inmates for a while, they've actually been helping us out as well with the STS crew. So that's a good way to get our numbers up as well.
Mr. Chair, and then the courts and Cass give them credit for helping as well.
Correct, yep. They actually get credit for time served. And of course, if you wanna say it's free labor on our part, they're paying $50 a bed to be housed here, but they're also going out and assisting with labor in our county, so. The monthly humor payments collected, you'll see, was $1,640. That's again, if there's an inmate that's paying to work at a job and being released from our jail, they have to pay $20 a day and or $140 a week, and it has to be paid up front before they can actually go out to work on this job.
Mr. Chair, and that's to go to the job they probably had when they came into jail.
Correct.
Yep, Mr. Chair, I just got a comment for the sheriff. The Sentence to Serve program, I hear nothing but good about it out in the communities of the different things they do, so it's
Well,
good.
It's a good service, and the more we get out and about, we like to tell people about it as well, because there's a lot more people that could probably take advantage of it.
Yep.
Our booking fees, you'll see, is $1,081.61. Anytime we bring someone in to get booked, it's a $20 fee. And then outer county inmates, you'll see that we actually.
Sure.
Oh, yep.
What if they can't afford to pay the booking fee? Where did they just, I'm sure that happens occasionally too, right?
It's a good question, Mr. Chair. So what happens is, if you want good credit, you're gonna pay your fee. If you don't really care about it, eventually we'll try and collect it as a sheriff's office, but it might get turned over to collections.
Okay.
And at that point, they'll collect, which means we're not gonna get the entire amount, we'll probably get a percentage.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I could, there's so many different areas within the organization that we balance out being funded by general property tax and we balance out user fees, so to speak. This is an area that tries to do that too, in terms of with some of these fees, it kind of sounds like you know, you're kind of hitting people when they're down maybe, or doing different things, but it really is a balance between trying to offset some of the general property tax dollars that we all pay to fund the business of county government, but yet recognize that there are certain users of different areas that kind of are elevated in terms of the amount that they pay because they're the ones needing the service. So just kind of taking this and relating it to the whole organization, that we do have a number of different areas in which that is the case, and this is one.
Bottom line is, there's a cost to everything.
Oh, most certainly.
That's true.
And how you fund it,
Yeah.
you can fund it in a variety of ways. Sorry, Sean.
And then the last thing is out-of-county inmates. So obviously, this is anything that applies beyond our own inmates. This is out-of-county, so you have Cass. In this last month, I think we mentioned it, there was Cass, DOC, Becker, and Monoman. So what we billed for those out-of-county inmates was $31,765. And again, that's just for the month of December 2015.
Mr. Chair, Sheriff, I think you mentioned 4 agencies, whatever, it doesn't make any difference. That is not to say that if a 5th or a 6th or a 7th or a 10th, if you had room, agency could call Morrison County. Do you have room for us that we would not say, come on, bring them over? Am I right?
Yes, Commissioner, you are correct. I want to say, I think our total was 68 inmates today, before I actually came up here to the board meeting. That being said, we can house 89, we have 89 beds in our upstairs jail, which is our main jail.
Yep.
But we do have a basement that can hold 56.
Yep.
So there is room, correct.
Question I have too, this 89, if you have 50 inmates or you have 80 inmates, do you need additional staff if you go, is there like a stair step there?
It's a good question, Commissioner. What it is there's DOC standards, and we have to abide by those standards. So what they recommend is that on an 89-bed facility, we can be up to 80%. We can fill the capacity of 80%. However, it has to be consistent. If it's fluctuating, it's not going to count. But if it is consistent, the reason they come up with that number is there's got to be some breathing room. So if, over the weekend, if, 3 or 4 patrol officers from Morrison County and a couple officers from State Patrol and a couple officers from the Little Falls Police Department make arrests, we have to have room to be able to book these people, book these inmates, and have a place to put them without getting too tight.
So, Mr. Chair, can I follow up with that and just say, this DOC recommends, and I'm looking for the key word of recommend. Okay, so what if you just, that is what they recommend, but you have the jail full. And I think Commissioner Wincher's question was, do you need to hire more staff if the jail
Correct.
was full consistently? And I got it, DOC says we recommend, well, so, let's just say that we all know Morrison County has the best employees and they're pushing themselves and taking care of business.
Yep.
Do we actually need to bring on more staff?
If we were to open up the basement, now we would have to. And basically, we can get by with 1 correctional officer for that entire basement. But if we just keep the number of inmates where we're at now and or higher, up to that 80% capacity, we're okay with what we got now, which is 1 person working the tower, and then we have 2 people that are roaming. So I can tell you this, that our staff has been very busy, and, I commend them because as the numbers get higher, they're actually a lot more busy. And they're not getting any more pay, of course, but their shifts are going by fairly quick. I know that much just from speaking with them.
So, but let's go back to recommend. Is recommend the law?
Well, if there's consistency in our numbers.
Yep.
And we're at that 80%
Yep.
capacity, then we're gonna follow DOC standards.
Okay.
But
What
if-
happens if we don't? Probably a really loaded question. I'm just asking. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I'm just saying, what
Mr.
happens if we don't?
Chair, I think, Sean, they identify that because it makes sense in terms of the fact that we
Thank
need to have capacity over a weekend in order to do exactly what Sheriff Larson said, that if people come in, so why we wouldn't follow a recommendation that had logic behind it in terms of the fact that we need to have room if people need to come in. I mean, otherwise, you know, Sheriff Larson's stuck with a pretty substantial issue of not knowing where to put people, and we don't want it to be that, so.
Very good.
Does that make
And
it
Commissioner,
makes
we
sense?
are gonna follow DOC
Yeah.
standards.
Very good. That's, thank you, there we are.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair? Sean, you have 89 beds upstairs, but we contracted out 15 now.
Correct.
So really, we only have 74 that's left for local people, more or less.
Correct.
But if you were full, you would just go downstairs and hire a couple people for that 2-3 days or whatever, right, or not?
Correct, Commissioner. The way the numbers fluctuate, that if we're over that capacity and our jail is full upstairs, then we would open up the basement, and what we do is we run 12-hour shifts. So we would have one person working a 12-hour shift, this person more than likely a part-timer, and then they would have to be relieved by the second person working that evening shift, an overnight shift. So yeah, with the guaranteed money with the Cass County contract that we'll talk about next, at $135,000 for 6 months, we would be covered. Obviously, there would be a great margin and profit that we'd still be making after the expense of hiring or putting on the part-time staff.
We have a real good situation here that we have the basement. Most
Yes,
jails,
we
when
do.
they're full, they're full. You know, we have a whole wing that we can open up, and whether it's for 2 people or 15 or,
Yeah.
so.
Other thing, Commissioner, and I brought this up last time at the board meeting when we talked, at the planning meeting when we talked about the contract with Cass County, is for some reason, if we didn't want to open up the basement, we still have the ability to tell other counties that they need to come and grab some of their inmates and bring them back to their home county.
If just upstairs.
Correct.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep. That's pretty much it, unless there's any questions. If there is, I'll answer them. If not, we'll probably move to the
Let's move
Cass County
around.
jail contract. Guess it's up to you, Mr. Chair, if you want me to go through this contract again, or if you just want me to highlight a few things.
I'd highlight would be fine.
Okay. So what it is I have 2 copies. One is gonna be the Morrison County Sheriff's copy. The other copy will be the Cass County Sheriff's copy. And I just need a signature from you, Mr. Chair. I can pass this on to. And let me get my copy out here. So with this, it's agreement between Morrison County Jail and the Cass County Jail. Just gonna do some highlights here. The number of Cass County inmates to be housed in Morrison County. If you look under number 1, Morrison County will provide a minimum of 15 beds to Cass County each day for the duration of this contract. So it just means we have to reserve 15 beds for Cass County. Now, that being said, if Cass County wants to bring additional inmates in, and we have room, we're obviously gonna allow that, but they'll have to pay $50 per bed per inmate above and beyond this contract.
Per day, correct?
Correct. Now, let's say they only bring in 12 inmates for the month. Like right now, I think the month of December, they had 13 inmates. They're still gonna be paying for the 15. This contract guarantees us
Okay.
that amount. We talked about under number 2, jail and health services. If there are bills for medical, the billing actually goes back to the home county, so Cass County would have to take care of their health care needs. That doesn't mean we may have to pay for some of that up front, but we'll obviously get reimbursed from Cass County if that's the case. If you look under number 3, 3.1, it says Cass County will pay Morrison County $750 a day for a minimum of 15 beds, regardless of whether all 15 beds are used or not. Any number of inmates that exceeds this amount will be billed at a rate of $50 per day, per bed per day, which we just talked about. And this contract is for 6 months, guaranteed $135,000. So what happens is after 6 months, then it'll be up for renewal. And at that point, we'll be looking at an annual renewal, a yearly contract versus the 6 months. And a lot can happen. Hopefully, we can gain more numbers at that time, but it's kind of a wait and see at this point. The only other thing I'd really want to point out is it's under general provisions, which is number 8. I know there was some talk as far as if we have inmates from other counties, what are we going to do after they get released? So 8.1, it talks about transportation. We'll go into that first. It says, unless otherwise agreed, Cass County will be responsible for the delivery and pickup of all Cass County inmates. And then 8.2, right under that, talks about the release. Unless otherwise agreed to, all Cass County inmates will be released to the custody of Cass County, and Cass County will transport Cass County inmates to Cass County prior to their final release from custody. So in other words, if someone's sentenced and they're doing time in Morrison County, when they're done with their commitment, Cass County will be picking them up and bringing them back to their home county for release. They won't stay in this community.
Mr. Chair, and the reason that's so important is because Morrison County could become a dumping ground. And I know we had a previous facility for mentally ill clients back 20 years ago that the clients would decide to leave, they'd end up in Morrison County, they'd end up in social services, and now we've got all these people with major mental illness issues living here in Morrison County, which really increased the need for more levy dollars to deal with those issues, big time. So
Correct.
that's why that's so important.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Mr. Chair, Sheriff, I have a question. I'm confident I know the answer to this one, but
Okay.
I think it's worthwhile to speak of. Anytime that you have a jail facility, inmates, if you will, in that facility, not everybody gets along. I mean, that's common nature. And let's just pretend, for the sake of argument, that whether it's Cass County or any other county that we are holding an individual for, and let's just say he or she really isn't fitting in, is call it a risk, call it whatever you want to. At any point in time, can we call that agency and say, you know what? This in particular inmate does not fit in to our facility at all. We've got problems with him or her routinely, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Can you call that agency and say, come and get them?
Yes, Commissioner, let's see if I can give you a number here. Under number 2, Jail and Health Services, if you scroll down to 2.4, it says Cass County inmates shall be subject to the discipline authority of Morrison County in accordance with jail procedures and rules applicable to all inmates housed. But if you go under 2.5, it says when requested to do so by Morrison County, Cass County shall remove any Cass County inmate within 24 hours. And that's that simple answer because, as the Commissioner stated, sometimes not everybody's gonna get along. And if we have a problem child and through discipline, they're not, working things out, it's not getting any better, we want that person removed then out of this environment.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Sheriff,
Commissioner Wilson.
Sean, if somebody breaks something, let's say from Cass County, they break one of the big windows or something, is that county responsible or are we responsible?
Well, it's kind of twofold, because number one, what's gonna happen is it's damage to property, but it's in our facility. So we'll actually be doing up a report, our correctional officers, and we'll be submitting it to the county attorney for charges. So, but of course, Cass County, they're the ones where, this inmate's trying to work off time. It's gonna go against them now because of the discipline.
Mr. Chair, one other thing, and this, you did run this by our county attorney, I would assume?
I did, Commissioner. And the only other thing I would probably bring up, because it's important, is when we go into effect with this contract.
Okay.
I'm thinking for billing purposes, maybe start at the first of the month, versus just starting immediately, but I can leave that up for discussion to see what you guys think as well.
Okay, I would so move on that, Mr. Chair.
I would
Are we
second.
talking about
Well, no.
we're gonna do the billing, or are we gonna move on that
The
contract
agreement,
here?
the contract.
Okay, all right,
That's
I've got
what I
a
mean.
motion, do I have a second?
I second.
Any more discussion?
I just like to give a lot of credit to the commissioners of the past when they decided to build this jail and make the facility with the basement and everything, because it's brought a lot of revenue into Morrison County. Sometimes the taxpayers don't quite understand when we spend a lot of money, how it can bring back money, and this is probably a very good situation. Otherwise, we'd be paying that money out to ship from somewhere else.
You're correct, Commissioner.
You bet.
I'd like to piggyback on that. I'd like to also thank our county board currently, because over the past year, we brought this discussion to our sheriff, stating, hey, let's do something about our empty county jail there. And I commend the sheriff's department and their staff for bringing this, because this is bringing $135,000 to the county, which we never had before. and I think it's a great thing, and it's money, it's profit. That's a good word to me.
And that's for 6 months.
Yep.
And, yeah, 6-month contract, Mr. Chair.
Right.
And it could change, could even
Correct.
go up after that. Who
We're
knows?
hoping so.
We have the room, so let's use it.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, and I think the issue of whether we should do the contract today or at the end of the month when billing is most appropriate, anyway, if we have 10 clients from our inmates coming in from Cass County, they're gonna be paying the same whether or not we do it or not, so.
You're correct.
Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, I would anticipate that, in my opinion, Sheriff, however you deem that to go,
Yeah.
wherever the start is,
Yep.
that's your shot, as far as I'm concerned.
I just want to thank the board, and then again, I want to thank my staff, because I know as the numbers rise, like I talked about earlier, our people are definitely busy. And there's no complaining, they're just doing their job, and we're working with what we
There's
got.
nothing
so.
better to watch that clock go by fast. I know how that is too.
Mr. Chair, Sean, can you give me a little update on our 2 deputies that we were?
Oh,
hiring and so
absolutely.
forth?
Should we, Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
can we
well,
vote on
let's
that?
finish on that.
Oh, I thought we did, okay.
No, we have a motion.
Okay.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
If you could just give me an update on our 2 deputies that were gonna work at night
Sure.
and so forth, drug task force or whatever.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, basically, we've been approved to hire 2 more full-time deputies, and we talked about what these deputies would be doing, some of their roles. And one of the roles was to be covering on the road from 04 to 8 a.m. In addition, they would also be assisting with our drug issues here that we have locally in our community. And by doing that, they'd be working with our drug and gang task force, assisting with drug interdiction stops, as well as tips that our investigators sometimes don't get to because just the busy caseloads that they work. And in addition, they would also be getting involved more with our schools. So that was approved December 2015, and what we've done now is we actually ordered the squad cars. Of course, they have to get outfitted. So for me to give you a month, I don't know if I can do that, but I can say it's probably gonna be at least 2 to 3 months out, minimum.
Moving forward.
Yep, but where we're at now is we just been taking it slow, but the ball is rolling. This week we'll be posting an internal position for those 2 full-time slots.
Commissioner Jinsky.
Mr. Chair, Sheriff, I just need to comment really quickly, and maybe you want to expand on it, and you probably do, is you in particularly, and I believe the Chief Deputy, Chief Worley, routinely stop in at any one of our elementary schools, middle schools, high schools throughout the county. I know that really recently you were at Lindbergh. You would just want to comment on kind of the program that you
Sure.
are establishing, because I think it's tremendous.
Sure, Commissioner. So what it is we feel that we need to basically get the trust of our youth. And the only way to do that is to be visible, in my mind, and to get involved in our schools more. So we didn't want to exclude any particular school, so what we try and do is we get involved with every elementary and every high school, and even the private schools within our county. So, of course, that's going to include every single town that has a school, to include the city of Little Falls as well. So what we try and do is, if teachers ask us to get involved, we'll do presentations. I know our drug and gang task force obviously gets involved right now, updating staff workers as well as school members, and alerting them on what to look for and signs and symptoms of some of these drugs that are being used. But as far as our little program, it's just really interacting with the kids, sitting down at a table in the cafeteria and just simply eating lunch with them and just answering their questions and having that dialogue back and forth. And I think it's very effective. I know it's going to take time to show results, but with the drug issue and a drug problem, it's my belief that we have to be on the same side of these youth, of our kids. And the only way that's going to happen is if we get involved early on. And right now, there's a lot of respect, obviously both ways. Kids are calling us by name. They're asking us questions. They feel comfortable around us. And I will say that wasn't the same reaction I got early on. So it does take time.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, and just adding to that, Morrison does not do a DARE program anymore, do we?
We do not have a DARE program, but what we do is there's some schools within Morrison County that obviously don't have a municipal police department. That'd be in Upsala and Swanville. So what we do is we have an officer assigned at a minimum 1 hour a day, 1 day a week at each of those schools.
And that's a good thing, and the reason I asked that question, having been involved in the field I have for many years and worked with a lot of youth, a lot of the studies on DARE really indicated that DARE was very negative from the perspective that an officer would come in and tell young people that, usually fifth, sixth graders, that drugs and alcohol were bad. And then the first time they used alcohol or a drug, it made them feel good. So it created so what you're telling me, you go interact with these kids, you develop a relationship. That to me is much more positive than telling them something is bad. Then when they use it, they feel good. So very, very good stuff. Very different approach than what used to be, so.
And of course, we're advising the staff. It doesn't matter if we're in Piers, we're in Motley, we're in Upsala, we're advising staff. We're here for you. If there's any concerns, take advantage of us. And believe me, there's been some schools where they might have an issue, and then they'll bring us in. And if we can get involved and help things out, that's what we're here for.
Yep, Mr. Chair, and Sheriff, I've been hearing good comments in Swanville and Upsala,
Okay.
you know. Good comments.
Any more discussion? Thank you, Mr. Sheriff.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
all
you,
your work.
Sheriff.
Thanks. You'll get that contract back.
Well, let's go to, I'm gonna, yes.
Social services.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Good morning, Brad.
Today I have a request to fill an existing position and add a position. The added position we discussed during the 2016 budgeting process. In your packet is actually two position request forms to fill. The first one is relative to our current position. We have a person who is resigning, beginning today. I believe they actually have to approve it at another board meeting. And that is a person in the eligibility team. And both of these positions are somewhat similar. The first one, the person leaving, is in the eligibility team, and the requested new position will be in the healthcare unit. First off, I guess if you have any questions on the eligibility position, the replacing position?
Mr. Chair, and explain what that means. What does eligibility mean?
So we currently have 3 units within the financial unit. We have the eligibility team, which deals with children or families and children. We have the healthcare team, which is managing all of the healthcare cases, and we have the long-term care unit, which manages the waivers, the elderly, the long-term care, the individuals in nursing homes.
So the eligibility, that would be on intake, do an intake, determine if they're,
That would be working with children and families. They do 3 different. Each unit is a case banking unit.
okay,
So staff rotate between phones, interviewing, and processing. The eligibility team has 8 current employees in that unit, and between the long-term care and the healthcare, there are 8 people in each of those units. So,
Mr. Chair, I think to answer your question, the eligibility team works on the assistance programs.
right, okay,
Yeah.
okay, very good.
The
And
general, yep,
yeah, families and children's. And
Okay.
the families and children's would be the Minnesota Family Investment Program, child care assistance, those types of programs, self-sufficiency programs. And so we have an employee that's leaving for another county, and is giving her 2-week notice today. So then, is there any questions on the eligibility?
Jumping forward, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just guess I need to comment, and I don't know if now's the right time or not. The position that we're talking about is simply a replacement position at this, right now. And as far as funding is concerned, obviously, it's all tax money, I
Yep.
got that. But it's not all Morrison County tax money that funds this position, and perhaps you can explain a little bit about that, Brad, please?
I can. Within the financial unit, we average about 48 to 50% reimbursement for each position. It varies depending upon what service they're providing. When we're talking about medical assistance services, it's about 75% under the new Affordable Care Act. And so for people in the eligibility team, on average, they're probably about 38 to 40% reimbursement, and that's federal tax reimbursement that we get for those positions. As you might remember, when the Affordable Care Act came through, the state and federal government permitted 75% reimbursement while they're doing medical assistance services. The challenge is, it's a very complicated funding formula, so we've just averaged it out for the entire financial unit. And so it ends up being about 50% reimbursement for all of the work throughout the financial unit.
And that reimbursement comes from the federal government, or does it come from blank insurance company?
All of that comes from the federal government.
Okay, very good.
Within the healthcare unit, within any of the financial unit, none of the employees get health insurance reimbursement similar to the social workers. However, they are critical, especially the healthcare unit and those working with families and children when it comes to medical assistance. Getting them on assistance does provide the social workers with reimbursement. So it's critical in that respect.
Very good.
So I think my recommendation, we kind of deal with them separately. We're talking about a replacement of an existing eligibility worker. We haven't, knock on wood, had to do this for a while. It seemed as if we had a lot of turnover at one period of time, but it's been a little while. It's been over a year. This unit has done a lot in terms of dealing with the influx of increased caseloads over the last number of years. They've done a great job with that, but reducing staff and going without would be very difficult to maintain services. So the recommendation is to replace and keep staff where they are in terms of the level in this area.
So based on that, I'd like a motion to replace the eligibility word.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We got a motion and a second. Kevin can second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any more discussion? Passed.
Thank you. The second position then is a new healthcare worker. This was discussed during our budget presentations for the 2016 budget. And in your packet, Cindy and Karen have put together some statistics relative to the healthcare unit and the stresses that they're currently experiencing. The challenge has been the interaction between our Maxis system and our Kieram system, which is, some of you might remember what's called the MNsure system. So administratively, it's taken some time when individuals are applying for medical assistance on a couple of ways. First off is people are getting online and applying for medical assistance through MNsure. There's challenges between that connection between MNsure and Maxis, and so people are calling, asking, why don't I have my health insurance? And so we're trying to answer their question while at the same time not having access to all the information that's on the MNsure system. The second issue is just the length of time it takes to process applications in the new system versus the old system. We all appreciate new technology, but I think there's challenges as they develop this system that just continues to create administrative burdens for staff. The third factor is that the Department of Human Services is now moving cases from the state, called Minnesota Care, to the counties to process, to manage. Because of the time that they're spending on MNsure, they're starting to move some of those cases down to the counties. So as you can see, it's the last graph that has been put together. There's going to be about 211 cases that will be moving down to us to manage because of the state's challenges with MNsure.
211, excuse me, Mr. Chair, Brad, 211 additional cases over and above anything that's going on right this moment.
Correct. This is a long history, but Minnesota Care is the state program that was developed a long time ago. And about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, counties could choose to do Minnesota Care cases or not do Minnesota Care cases. We chose not to do Minnesota Care cases, so they were all managed by the state. And as MNsure has evolved and the state has seen the challenges with that, they're beginning to move those cases back to the state without really any ability for us to say at this point that we are not going to do them.
Back to the county.
Or counties, thank you, back to the counties.
So could we call that another unfunded mandate?
Yes.
I don't mean to be smart when I say that, but in all honesty,
Yep.
an unfunded mandate. If the state's saying we're not gonna do it anymore, counties, you do it.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, and what percentage of the funding for that position, is that still the
That would still be
48% from
that would still be
feds?
about, yes.
But nothing's coming from the state to assist us with that?
Nothing is coming from the state for us to assist with that.
And Mr. Chair, some of the interactions that Brad talked about with the systems that we work with, this isn't unique to Morrison County. I just wanna throw that out there, that it's a statewide issue that, counties all over are dealing with in terms of the processing time and the time it takes, that it's increased and it's difficult, and there's just more caseloads in general, like you're seeing, and there's a bunch more involved with medical assistance with a healthcare component than there ever used to be. Affordable Care Act has kind of changed all of that.
Mr. Chair, Brad, and I think that in fact, I know that I have said this on many more than one occasion. The Affordable Care Act, call it whatever we want to, at the very beginning, we could have hired X amount of staff in social services. There were other counties that did. Whether that was putting everything in front of the 8 ball or behind it, I don't know. But we didn't do that.
Nope, the last position we hired was, the last added position was July of 13.
And so correct me if I'm wrong, is this or is this not a direct result of the Affordable Care Act?
This would be a direct result of the Affordable Care Act and the increased medical assistance caseload. And I haven't shared the graph for a while, but, before the Affordable Care Act, we had about, I'm gonna just, like 3,200, and now we're up to about 5,400 healthcare cases. And so it's been a dramatic increase in medical assistance cases over the last, especially the last year, calendar year 2015, we saw that, just a gradual increase that became dramatic in the end of 2015. And so the staff, the supervisors, Karen and Cindy have done a great job of trying to manage with what they have. But it is just, I just look at for instance, the phone calls that started to go down and now they're dramatically increasing. And all those phone calls are taking longer to manage, both in terms of if they have to call the help desk down at the state, they're on hold for an hour, hour and a half while they're waiting to get a hold of somebody to help them maybe just push a switch or flip a switch on some case to authorize it. And the state has given us very little ability to do some of the easy things within MNsure, which create more staff time for us. We are working as counties to try and get more authority within the MNsure system, so staff are not having to call down to the state to get the help because of the hour, hour and a half lag time in phone calls. So it's just been increasing and increasing in terms of some of these activities that normally could have taken 5-10 minutes and are now taking an hour or hour and a half.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if you recall in some of the lobbying efforts that we're a part of, not only the social services director groups that are working with the state directly and the agencies directly, but also lobbying efforts regarding the systems that are run by the state, and the interactions between them are on radars in terms of making sure that we're working with the state legislatively and working with the state with agencies to try to help some of these components of this process that are really hindering business. And I think that we just need to keep on that, and I know Brad's group really does a good job on identifying that, working with the agencies, but we need to, as legislative organizations like county boards and AMC, through that avenue, keep that on the radar. And I know it was this year and it needs to continue because it just impacts business all across the state and clients that we serve.
Yeah, we've been working hard on simplification efforts around the financial assistance programs just because, when you have to count assets in 20 different ways, it doesn't become that easy. So depending on what medical assistance program they're applying for, it just becomes a challenge for workers to decide, where does this bank account go, where does that trust go, where does this go, where does that car go, where does that house go, when you're talking about the assets that people have and the insurance they're trying to apply for. So it's good to have more people on insurance for a variety of reasons. Our local hospitals have less unencumbered care. Our social workers have more clients who are on medical assistance, thereby getting reimbursed for the services that they provide. However, it does not come without its challenges.
Mr. Chair, I know these things get awful complicated, and I know that we're required to have people, but I still have problems when we don't have room for people, which seems to always be the issue that we're at now because
Yep.
we're helpful. But also the advantage of all this is there's a lot of money that comes into the county that's distributed to businesses and stuff because of the people that are getting the money here. So that's the other side of this story
Yep.
that we don't wanna overlook. We're always looking at this as an expense, which it is to us, but there's also a lot of money that's coming in that creates the
Yep.
volume to move around a little better.
Yeah. Yeah, as you know, as I've shared, in the fall of every year in our cost report, you know, the services that we provide and a lot of these insurance services that are authorized, you know, that to the tune of about $63 million, I think, in healthcare costs for Morrison County. So it's a large economic driver in terms of, some of our providers and the businesses around here. So it has an impact.
And Mr. Chair, your point in space is a big deal, and I think, you know, we continue to talk about this building and what we do inside of it and the needs that we have for it to serve the purpose, and continuing to look at that, and it does come with, different ideas and different thoughts, like telecommuting and what can be done with that, like looking at the space that we have, in particular for areas that we have limited control as far as how many people are working in that and the increase that we have with that, because the work won't get done otherwise, and we need to serve these people. And so space is a big deal, and that kind of melds into what we've been talking about with facilities. It's not being ignored, but it takes time to establish a good plan.
Mr. Chair, in this position that you're requesting, do you have a space for that?
We do have a space for them, yes.
Okay, very good, that's all I had to ask, thank you.
Commissioners, based on what we have here, I have a position vacancy request for a new healthcare worker. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair?
Did we approve the new health?
No,
program?
just the first one.
Just the first one.
Just the
Oh, for a
part-time.
new one, you said a
Yep.
vacancy for,
Well,
no, a new position,
yeah,
okay.
okay, yeah. So anyway,
I was confused.
Mr. Chair? Very often, it's a hard thing to do is to hire more people, and I got that. I'm very clear on it. I'm also very clear on the numbers that we have in front of us. I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Any more discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the explanations.
Social
Yeah,
Services
that was very
Public
good.
Health
Thank you.
Report.
And I'm going this one alone. Katie was unable to join us today. There's a Piers Area Coalition meeting that she had to be at, so I'm bringing forth the delegation agreement between Morrison County and, unless Michelle wants to come to the front, so.
Is that why you're here?
No.
She is here on behalf of Katie, but I told Katie I was just gonna bring this
Come
forth.
on up, come on up. Yeah. We're putting it all together. I said, Social Service Public Health.
Okay, can you explain this for us?
No.
Okay.
Didn't get me prepared for this one.
So the delegation agreement is between Morrison County and South Country Health Alliance. This lays out the responsibilities of our agency on behalf of South Country members. This helps pay for those individuals on South Country Health Alliance who are on a special needs basic care plan, prepaid medical assistance program plan, MA, MSHO, Minnesota Senior Health Options, MSC Plus, Minnesota Senior Care Plus.
There'll be a test on these later.
Yes,
gentlemen.
so because of Kevin always saying what are acronyms, I'm going from acronym to
Very
the
good.
actual.
I understand them, but a lot of the public doesn't.
Yeah. So, it also provides the position descriptions for care connectors, which South Country reimburses us for. We have 2/3 of a position that is reimbursed through South Country Health Alliance. And so I'm here today requesting board approval to sign, for Katie and I to sign this delegation agreement between our agency and South Country Health Alliance.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have today, unless there's something else. Actually, Katie and I will be doing a South Country presentation at county planning, just to let you know where some things are at. So.
Thanks, Brad.
Very good. Thank you very
Thank you.
kindly, Brad.
Appreciate it.
Public
Michelle,
Health
now it is your
Report
moment
by
to
Yes,
shine, and
but we're
Michelle.
Amber, go first.
All right.
Michelle.
Yes.
Good morning, Michelle.
Keeping it easy.
We won't,
Good morning,
we
Michelle.
won't get confused.
Yes, you.
Okay. I'll be very brief this morning. I'm asking board approval to approve 2 seasonal licenses in the environmental health, one for Augers Pine Resort and the Dairy Queen of Little Falls.
I have request to approve, do I have a motion?
So moved,
Mr.
I'll
Chair.
second.
Any more discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That was
Thank you.
easy, thank
Very
you,
good.
Michelle.
Short.
That was easy.
Now you can leave it all alone.
She's flying solo now.
Thank you,
All right.
Michelle. Bye-bye.
So I have a couple different requests. My first request is board approval for the abstract of 2016 tobacco license renewals in Morrison County, and it is attached. And I think there's 39 establishments there.
I have a request to approve the abstract for the tobacco license.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, and we had a couple of establishments who were, I guess, charged this last year with
Yes.
selling. And my question would be, I think there was one that, wasn't it a third time? Was it a second or a third time?
It was a third time, but technically within that 2-year span, it was their first.
Their first within
So,
that 2-year
yeah.
span. Okay,
Yep.
okay. And now, my question would become, is a tobacco license controlled by the board as far as if there were any removal of license for selling to adolescents? Is that under the board's purview or is that under state?
I believe would be under state.
Well, you're renewing the license,
Yeah.
and
Oh, so
you
it'd be
could
the
choose
same-
not to renew a
Yeah.
license
It'd be
based
the
upon.
same issue?
Yep.
Okay, okay, I was just curious.
Yep.
But, Mr. Chair, can we void that license at any time? I don't know the answer to that either.
There's a compliance process with the issuing of a license. So there are certain steps that we take,
Yeah.
like Michelle and her staff will go through the process of ensuring compliance and doing different checks and those things that we need to do to make sure people are doing proper business because they're afforded that ability to do so through a license that you have. And we have different steps outlined, we have different attempts at compliance outlined when we
Yep.
do that. One of them in the ultimate, if we
Be
can't
revoked.
garner compliance from
Okay, very good.
all of those steps, we're gonna come back to you and rethink issuing that license. But
Yep.
luckily, we haven't had that, people who don't fall into compliance generally do, and that's what we all want. And so that's part of this process.
Any more discussion?
Thank you.
Mr. Wilson?
There was a couple places that didn't pay their taxes last year with license, and I see that one of them are on here for tobacco. Possibly, doesn't make any difference, or,
Well, they would have then paid.
Paid.
And that's why they're on here. If there's that's checked prior to bringing them to the board, that if they're not current on their taxes, their property taxes, we would identify that and wait and withhold that right to be able to
so then
apply
they
for
are
it.
current now.
So all these are paid, yep.
Any more discussion? We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
P&I.
P&I, so, I'd like to request board approval to pursue the planning and implementation grant funding as a fiscal host in partnership with the Royalton School District and the Royalton community, and this grant is focused on the reduction of alcohol use through a community-based approach and evidence-based, prevention strategies.
I have a request for a planning implementation grant. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, and I think we reviewed this quite extensively in our planning session, and I think Piers and I think Little Falls as well have had these grants before.
Correct.
And I'm very positive in empowering the community to address these issues, so just good stuff.
And Mr. Chair, this is the attempt to work with the community to apply for that grant.
Right.
We certainly
Apply
would
for
come
it.
back to the board with action if we were successful, in obtaining that. in those
Absolutely.
All right, any more discussion? We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And then also, I'd like, to request approval to pursue the drug-free communities, the DFC years 6 through 10 grant funding as a fiscal host in partnership with the Peers Area Coalition, also known as PAC. And the current DFC grant is in, year 5 currently of the 5-year cycle and focuses on the youth alcohol prevention strategies of marijuana. Within the last year, the youth involvement, the EPIC student group for this grant has increased from 20 students to 147 and has continued to rise. And the coalition membership has doubled from 12 to 24 members.
Mr. Chair, I'll move on that.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second, any more discussion?
Just good stuff. When you look at the
Yep.
increases of the involved youth, that's just really good. Their involvement is so important, and I
Yes.
think a lot of this is led by example, so that's very important.
I've been over to Piers recently, working on one of their events that they're gonna have this spring. And the involvement of the students is truly, it's amazing
They're very energetic,
what's
yes,
going
yeah.
on over there. It's very cool. I like it.
Mr. Chair, I just think I need to point out that the top right
Oh,
young man in the orange
here
is
we
not
go.
only handsome, but he
Here we
looks like
go.
he might
There
be
we
pretty
go.
smart.
Takes
I don't
after
know where
his
he
dad,
get that from.
I think he takes after his dad.
Yeah.
Is he the one that's giving the rabbit ears to
No, I just needed to point that out.
So that is the EPIC student group.
All
Very
right.
good.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
You have all kinds of stuff.
Oh, I know, right? First, I would like to pass around, so we have these magnets, made for the, responsive beverage server training, and they'll be sent out to all this, local bars or any establishment that we would want to have come to the training.
I can stick it to the pipe, man.
So if I don't, I
Drag
believe
it.
I have enough for everybody. So at the last training, we had 11 participate from the 1 to 2 session, and then 7 from the 5 to 6 session. And we already have 8 signed up for the next April session. And some of them that are signed up are not even bartenders, they just want to have that on their resume, that they took this education, so that's pretty exciting. And then also I have some brochures. I believe Kate Bjorgi and Mary Kenna came and presented both the Eat Smart grant. So this is just a brochure that they made up for you guys to look at.
Good stuff.
That's all I have.
Any questions, board? All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Michelle,
wonderful day,
thank you
Michelle.
very
Thank
kindly.
you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Extension. And then after the extension, we'll take a brief.
Brief.
Good morning.
Good morning, Becky. How are
How are you
you?
today?
I'm very good. It seems like it's been an awful long time since I've been here. We have
We've
so many
missed you.
other
Yeah.
educators
Yes.
rotating through the
You
presentation.
can come with them if you want to
So-
sometime. Take
Well,
team.
sometimes we do that if there's a good program that we just gotta sneak in and let you know about.
Okay.
So, I will make my update brief here. Just a couple of notes. We've been doing some county project nights again this year. This is our 3rd year. December, we had a fine arts, night where we did some, watercolor abstract painting, which was very fun. Cloverbud program has started up again. That's K through 3rd grade. We just had a happy horses session, and we'll be doing some whole grains, bicycle safety, poultry, opportunities as well once a month through May. I'm working on a youth program quality assessment project, and that's, where we, staff go in and observe a club meeting and look at different elements of what's going on within the meeting, the youth and the adults and how they're interacting. Looking at a safe environment, youth engagement, education, and leadership opportunities for kids. And then, we sit down and have, a meeting then with a smaller group of people that are part of that club and look at, what are the great things that you're doing within your, club meeting? And then what are some things where maybe we can make some changes and improvements for the overall youth participants and adults. And so I've just completed that with the exception of the second follow-up observation, and then I'll be starting the process again with another club soon. Also want to let you know there's some new technology coming to the county fair that sounds like it'll be very exciting. We're having a training March 1st on it. We're gonna kind of like little scanners. You watch the Progressive movie and the scanner or the TV or the TV commercials. We're gonna have little scanners at the county fair and barcodes and be able to check in kids and their projects with these scanners. So I'm very anxious to see how this is gonna go, but I think it will actually streamline the process and make it very easy to get more volume of kids and projects through and hopefully be more accurate. And then in the end result, make the compilations of premium checks and awards and stuff also much quicker. So looking forward to that. Then I wanted to give you just a quick update on our ambassador program, which is grades 6 and up. We have a new volunteer leader that's helping out with that. We just completed a lock-in overnight at the government center. Had a great time, pizza and popcorn and ice cream and all sorts of movies. And so what we're looking at though is we're developing an outreach into different communities of kids that are coming in to participate in this. So we had kind of a nice little group from Little Falls and Upsala School that have become hard and fast friends through this ambassador program, but now we're drawing in kids from Piers and Harding area. And so this has become, it's been growing, and so I'm very proud of that. We're also getting some kids who are interested in going to some out-of-county events around leadership, and our Building Leadership and Understanding workshop will be happening in the end of February, and we have 5 kids from Morrison County that have signed up to do that, and this is the first time in I can't tell you how many years. So it's great that they're really looking to expand and meet new people and learn new things and develop themselves as leaders. That's my 4-H update. I do want to really quick mention that Dan will be here this Thursday. He's doing his private pesticide applicator workshop again, which is the renewal. Can't do first-time applicators, but if they're renewing, they are welcome to attend that. More information can be found at the Extension Office.
Any comments, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair, and I just want you to know how impressed I am with the articles that you put in the record in the farm section. I mean, just so many good things on growing and planting and bees, and I mean, just a lot of good stuff that Extension puts in there. I think very informative and very, very informative to the public, so good stuff.
I think it's been really great having all the educators, and they each really do a lot to put in.
Correct me if I'm wrong, there's another 4-H club came about, right? There's a new 4-H club?
We actually, it's been almost now a full year cycle, which we started, actually 3 new clubs.
Okay.
2 of them are going really strong. One is I'm not sure. We're trying to resuscitate it. There's a Octacular Club, which is meeting here in Little Falls, and they're meeting in Little Falls because they draw also from Randall area and Piers area, and so they're finding a common ground here. And then a Livestock Club, which again is meeting here in Little Falls because it's drawing from all of the areas, and they're doing very well. So we keep working. It's always a process.
It's always good to hear.
So, Mr. Chair, let me ask Becky, a livestock club,
Yep.
unlike 4-H or part of 4-H or?
So within 4-H, you can have different types of clubs, and that's just, it's more of a label than anything else. They still work around youth development and education and that type of thing. So we have community-based clubs, which kids and families get together based on a location. And then we also have project clubs where families get together based on a common interest. So this livestock club is considered a project club. Most of the kids in it have some sort of a livestock interest or desire to learn about or whatnot, and that's what draws those families together. So a lot of the education that they do, service work that they do is kind of designed around the livestock area. Very similar to our horse club, where most of their activities revolve around
And
horse.
livestock can be pretty much anything.
But they're 4-H members first? No?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yep,
very good.
yep. All 4-H members
Okay,
first, and
very
then
good.
they kind of pick their
Sure.
Any
interest
more
area.
discussion?
Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank
day.
you, Becky.
You too.
All right, let's take 5, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Ladies. Moving right along.
Good morning, Deb.
Good morning, gentlemen.
What's wrong with why does my screen like this and then it comes? This takes a while to catch up.
I don't know if it's something with the internet today, because my computer was super slow too, so I don't
It
know.
gets blurry. It's like I don't think my glasses aren't even working.
It's gotta take a minute, it's happening on Monday or Tuesday. Just a few items to update you all on this morning. We got an update on the route permit for the Great River Energy and Minnesota Power line that's being updated north of here by Motley. There was a public hearing back in November, and I don't think anybody else made it. I was there for part of the meeting. There were a few cantankerous individuals there, mostly the property owners, where they're proposing to put the line on the east side of the road. And the permit right now did go through. So that allows them to keep moving forward on the process.
Excuse me.
Yeah, the
yeah,
permit from the
Mr.
state.
Chair, the permit
Yep.
for, the
From the
permit
Utility Commission,
to do exactly what?
for them to keep moving forward with the process. So, there are several hoops they still have to jump through.
Boy, I'm gonna sound really odd here.
That's
They
okay.
need a permit to continue on with the process.
What
Did they need a
process?
permit to start the process?
They need a whole bunch of permits.
Okay, but I
Then
mean,
this is from the Utility Commission. They went through an EAP.
yeah,
Up there. That went to the Utility Commission, who said, okay, there's really nothing there to stop you from moving forward.
okay.
So, that's basically what this step was,
saying that they've reviewed the EAP. They can move forward on the east side of the road, which is the one that they were proposing, would have the
East
least
side of
effects.
Highway 10, correct?
East side of
Right.
Highway 10, sorry, correct, up in the Motley area. There are more property areas, or property owners that will be affected on that side of the road, but in the end, less effect to the property and the lines and the total cost of the project, et cetera. So that's where they're proposing. So at this point, they have the permit to move on to the next phase of the project and start talking to property owners about buying easements.
So they needed a permit, if I may, to talk to the people, huh?
Yes, before they can do anything else.
Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Now, if people don't wanna sell, they can still come in and
eminent domain.
do the eminent domain. There's, they can't stop them.
So generally speaking, do you know, and I don't know that you know the answer to this, people get paid $5 or $500 or $5,000 or
Yeah,
once a
honestly,
year?
don't know. They'll come up with a fair market value, and they'll try to come up with something reasonable.
Okay.
You know,
And
I don't know.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, it isn't about people losing their houses, because no houses will be taken, but it's about taking a lot of the woods that separates them from Highway 10 and putting a big power line through there is where the issues are coming in.
I believe the problem was there were like 3 properties that will lose the trees between the house and Highway 10, so they'll lose that sight line. So some property values will go down. And in the study, they do state that there is some history in that if there is a power line going across your property, there is a possibility it can go down up to 10% when you lose sight lines, things like that. So these properties are the ones that may end up being affected. Some of the others may not be affected at all.
Not to mention the noise and the
The
highways
buzz,
there.
yeah.
You know.
Is there really, Mr. Chair, is there really any stopping this stuff though? I
Nope,
mean,
it's just
you know,
letting
it's
you know
pretty
what's
much
gonna
gonna go
happen,
on
because
and-
you may get some complaints up that way
Yeah,
especially,
sure.
but you may get some complaints down here also, and
So as ugly as it sounds, and going back to kind of what I was asking earlier, and I know we don't have the answer to this, but would it be safe to assume that if you're gonna cut down a whole bunch of my trees and all of a sudden increase my sight of the road, let's call it that, that I'm gonna sorta kinda get compensated for that?
they normally compensate for the trees they take down, so they'll pay you for each tree, that kind of thing. So they do try to compensate. The power lines, they all try to pay the same way like that.
Okay.
When they came through mine, they paid me for each tree they took down.
Okay.
So they have a fair value for each tree. My oak tree costs this much, a pine tree costs this much.
They do not compensate for the 10% decrease possibility.
They don't compensate for the decrease in your land value.
Well, it's resale value,
Right.
market value is where the kicker is.
Exactly.
And Mr. Chair, this is something that, isn't a decision at the county board table, isn't something that you have a direct impact in, but constituents may
Right.
question you on it. And that whole value and that compensation and fair and appropriate, everybody values things differently. So whether or not that is adequate to one person, it may not be adequate to another, and so
And that's up to
emotions run high.
our assessor, sorry to interrupt.
That's information
to
that we got.
look at
This-
that
this is
value.
your phone call, yeah.
Yep.
Now, and this is a required project in order for the pipeline up there to move forward also, because they need the increased power to put in the new substations. So it all ties together.
All right, thanks
Okay.
for the information.
Thank you.
Next item,
Property taxes.
I did update the spreadsheet that I sent out too, because I wanted to let you know about the percentage of delinquent taxes, as long as we were talking about the unpaid tax.
This is the update. So that was-
So I just added a column on the end that includes the percentage that represents for the unpaid taxes at the beginning of each year. So this is again just information at the beginning of each year, 2013, 14, 15, and 16. The total outstanding tax broken down by tax penalty, interest, and fees, and then what percentage of delinquent taxes that represents.
Mr. Chair, but this doesn't tell you that they were paid or not paid, or, it just shows what was delinquent.
Right, this does not show you any details, but as you can see, it's been slowly decreasing, so we're collecting those taxes that were outstanding and slowly getting a better handle on it.
So if I may, if I read this correctly, at the beginning of January of 2015, we were owed 1.8 million, is that correct? Mm-hmm. In back taxes.
Do you know how much it's forfeited? I mean, because we did have a couple sales and stuff that forfeited.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you right offhand, we're
Probably
trying
not
to,
a ton, but
yeah, trying to get through to that, probably this next week, we're gonna try to, start working on the list again, to see what properties, came back on the list this last fall, and clean up that list and do maybe another sale.
because that would impact that, you know, part of that reduction or part of that, these numbers would include forfeited property. So once they're sold, then those are cleared up and not delinquent any longer. But again, I doubt it's a lot, but it still is something that could be considered.
All right, any discussion on that, gentlemen?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm confused, which probably happens more than I'd like to admit, but anyways, under tax, 1,444,757. Right? Mm-hmm. And that's what is owed us? And then total owed, 1,831,000.
Gotta add the penalties and the interests.
Right.
Fees.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. I thought, I was looking at total tax dollars we collected, and that's not on here, okay.
Right.
Very good,
Makes sense?
I understand now, thank you, I got it, thank you.
Okay,
Any more discussion?
Good information. Thank you.
All right. And let's see here.
I think the only other thing I have is the warrants.
I would so move on the warrants, Mr.
I
Chair.
would second.
Any discussion? This is a roll call?
That includes all
All the bills, everything?
Yep,
Correct? Okay.
everything.
We'll start a roll call. Commissioner Jelinski,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer,
Aye.
myself, aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you,
I
gentlemen.
got another question for David. Back to liquor and tobacco, if anybody has past taxes, they are not eligible to get licensed for those things?
Correct, until the taxes are paid.
Until the taxes are paid, okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dale.
Public Works, Mr. Steve. I guess Steve Nish's not here.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Good morning, Steve.
Morning, Steve.
I have two action items within your packet. Both of them are related to construction projects that we had this summer. The first would be our County State Aid Highway 43, the replacement of the bridge over the Platte River with redstone construction. We have completed and final this project, and they've met the terms and conditions of their contract, and we'd recommend that the board authorize us to make final payment.
I'll move on that, Mr. Chair.
So roll call vote. We got a motion and a second. All in favor? Mr. Mauer,
Aye.
Mr. Jelinski,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Wilson.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The second then is related to the bridge replacement over the Two Rivers, in Two Rivers Township. And that was constructed by Marvin Treader Incorporated. And we would recommend approval of final on this project. They've met the terms and conditions of their contract, and we're ready to final this project.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer,
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, just a statement, okay, if I may? I mean, both of those bridges are just excellent. I mean, what was removed and what is replaced, and the concrete structure, it's just amazing where technology has come and no structures in the water, you know, flow past through, just good stuff compared to what they were.
Yeah, both of these were nice, turned out very well.
Oh, very
Nice
well.
job.
Very nice, very nice.
Thanks, Steve.
Good job.
That's all I have unless there's other questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very
Steve,
much.
thank you very kindly.
Administration.
Thanks, Steve.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of items. First, to refresh your memory, last week we talked a little bit more about the building across the street at 303 Broadway East. It was formerly the Boys and Girls Club. It's a building that we purchased back in '08, I think, and had a renter or a leaseor for the last number of years with the Boys and Girls Club. They, as you recall or remember and know, that they refurbished a building on the west side and have since vacated the property. We have been talking about the best use of that property and what to do moving forward. When we purchased that building, we knew it was one that wasn't going to be occupied for very long or able to be occupied. I think it far exceeded our expectations with the tenant that we had. Not only did it help establish that Boys and Girls Club, I think the location was good. It was a great use of that property, and they have expanded and thrived beyond, I think, anybody's expectation, really, and have since moved on. But now we have this property that was in a state of disrepair back when we purchased it, and now it's even more so in a state of disrepair. The recommendation at this time, it went and was vetted through the Facilities Committee, is to demo this property. As we talked about before, we wanted to look for what could be salvaged from the building. And so John Erdrich, myself, and Nicole and Tim Brummer went over to the site last week, and we're going to walk over there again after so you can see that, and did identify a few things that could come out of the building prior to that demolition. There is asbestos, so it's something that needs to be demoed carefully, and we want to make sure that we're taking a responsible approach to that demolition and removing things. Just so you know, we went over there. There are a few things that we identified. This is the property. There's a lot of water damage. The roof has leaked for a long time. It leaked prior to us buying it. There's multiple levels and a lot going on in that building. I had no idea it was as large as it was, but a lot of water damage that would cause any occupancy to be very difficult and expensive to rehabilitate the building. And so demoing it is something that we are recommending. And as a liability purpose, I don't think we want people in there because it's very, very poor at best in terms of the condition of the building. There's a number of floors, and a lot of this, floors and ceilings, and a lot of water damage in that building. But we'll go over there and take a look. But there's a couple cabinets, very minimal. There's a couple of furnaces that we can take out and remove that probably has some value. There's a sink if we want to do that. There's a chandelier that we can take out. It's missing parts. It's not very
Any
well
doorknobs?
kept. I don't know about doorknobs. I didn't see anything that looked all that interesting. That iron on the front we can take out, and all of that would go on a public auction. Then people would have the ability to purchase those if they'd like. Again, nothing that's but one person's trash is another person's treasure. I don't know, but there are a few things that STS could spend a limited amount of time there and get out, and we could gain some value from. So that is what our recommendation is. But at this point in time, demoing the building and preparing it for a possible parking lot, or if there's eventually a building site, I don't know. But at least, at this point in time, the building there as it sits is something that we're recommending be removed to, again, not have that liability of a vacant building that's there, that's in disrepair, and be able to move forward with a clean slate on what we want to do in the future.
And are we asking for a motion on this?
A motion to begin that process. The funding would come from our building fund. We have saved up, so to speak, for this. We knew this was coming at some point in time. It was a plan that was established when the purchase was.
And it's not in the motion, commissioners, but do we put the dollar value in there?
Yes, and it's either 63.5 or 65.
65.3.
I have a little
Okay.
transposition
So
problem.
65.3.
Something maybe?
Yes.
Put in there?
And we didn't have to put that out on bids because,
We have a couple of quotes that
Right,
we
okay.
got from that and took a look at it, and
Okay.
we were able to follow that.
all right.
So, Mr. Chair, quotes were advertised and all that, I don't get
We
it.
sought a couple of quotes and got responses, and then are picking the lowest.
And that's all we need to do?
Yep.
Okay.
Right, yep. And I'm assuming this is a roll call vote too, since we're spending money here?
Yes.
All right, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I
that we
need a
table
second.
this then.
I have a second to I have a motion to tear the demolition, I don't know what it's called, the.
303
Boys and Old Birds.
East Broadway.
Yeah, there we go, I have a motion, do I need a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second, any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, excuse me.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Mr. Chair, I'm just asking, and this is not what I do, but there are programs on television these days of restoring different facilities. I'm not suggesting of restoring, but there are also programs on TV today where people gather junk, if you will, from sites and restore other projects with junk from other sites. I'm anticipating that that's not even a question.
Mr. Chair, I have not sought out the television world to look at that. I don't,
Just asking.
they're not here in Morrison County.
Very good. Good enough.
And
Don't
if I may
necessarily have
comment,
time.
I don't think the building's old enough for that, you know, cause it was built, what, maybe the thirties, forties probably, you know, they're talking more of the older stuff that, you know.
That's
so.
good with me.
Commissioner Mauer.
Need to
Mr.
mention.
Chair, and I received a phone call on the wrought iron stuff on the front, which is very beautiful, and I think other people have, so I think that will hopefully be pulled out and put on the county auction, so, you know, it isn't just given to someone, people have a chance to bid on it, okay? The other thing is, I received a call from someone from the Historical Society with some concerns about why aren't we selling it to be fixed up to rent and whatever else, and in response to that, this board has had a lot of discussion on where this building is at, and then just looking at the pictures on the inside, looks great from the outside yet. I mean, looks just fine, but looking at these pictures on the inside and all the destruction and the water damage, and, I mean, it just, and with the asbestos, I mean, what it would cost the county to repair something like that, and then whatever, it just isn't feasible. So just
Mr.
wanted to
Chair,
comment on that.
the property, from what I understand, and I can't recall the amount of time, was up for private sale for a very long time.
Right.
So it isn't as if the private community hasn't had an opportunity, and that was 8-9 years ago, 7, you know, to be able to invest in this property. It wasn't invested in because it would be very expensive to rehabilitate. So I hope folks, when thinking through this process, understand that the private business world had an opportunity, and at that point in time, prior to time passing still, in which disrepair has increased, didn't invest in it for that very reason, because it didn't make economic sense. So we're not, I don't think, reacting or making a quick decision or anything along those lines. This has been a property that's been out there and for sale and it didn't sell, and we found a good use for it. I think has established a great use for this community. They have moved on, and now we need to do what we need to do.
Mr. Chair, and just another comment, that all being said, like I said, it looks very good from the outside, inside it's shot inside, so just the dollars it would cost. And just, there are people that are concerned about the old buildings in our community, and rightfully so. We just put a lot of money into the courthouse, retucking, grooming it, our old courthouse, and, you know, so we do care about those things. In this case, this was purchased by a former county board, I think Commissioner Johnson, was for a parking lot for the library and the city and the county. So here we are today, and to resolve that would cost too much money, so.
And also, we are struggling for parking too, the county is, so that would make, great parking if that's the case. Now, this demolition includes filling it in, does not include tarring it or anything like that. We're just gonna tear it demolition and tear it down, so.
And then a class 5, I'm assuming, something like that base
Right,
or
yep.
whatever.
And again, there's also a legal standpoint where you have an empty building like this where somebody could get in and get hurt, so
Yep.
this is all.
And the county paid $200,000 for that building, and the Boys and Girls Club were in there for 8 years. Just the positive donation to our
Very true.
community, children and their families. You can't put a value on that. I mean, what an inexpensive way to provide a good resource for those
Mr.
individuals.
Wilson.
So,
And if I'm not sure, that I think the first bid we had on this was about 135,000 to tear down and so forth, right? And now it's
Yes,
down
and
to
I,
65.
yep.
And now
That was
it's
kind of a
down to
placeholder that we
65.3.
had in terms of what it would cost, so we could go through
Yep.
budgeting purposes, but yes, it
It
did.
was 65.3, correct?
Sort of. And we did assess the asbestos, and that helped, because there wasn't as much as we thought possibly.
And another question, I think we're gonna take a tour of that to
Yes.
see what
Correct.
should be saved, and I know we've talked about this railing, but according to me, the way this railing looks on this building right here, it looks like it's holding up the roof.
It isn't.
It's
Well,
not.
No.
and that's something we
Oh,
can take a
okay,
look at. We can
because I would
assess
say
that.
that I would have a problem tearing that down if it's holding the roof up.
Yep.
And
To
Commissioner
save
Wilson,
for-
that's
And,
why
and
we're going
what
over
I'm
there
going
take
to,
a look.
you know, we'll go take a look at
Yeah.
it, but we do need to rely on, you know, those that are doing the work to
Yep.
say this could or could
We don't
not
wanna
be
fall
taken
down
down.
on the STS.
That's right.
And Tim
Commissioner
was with
Johnson.
us last time.
Well, one last comment. I think when the county bought it, the county board bought it, we, you know, for tearing it down someday, and now we're at that point. So, and I think it was a very good use of the property, Boys and Girls Club. We didn't stick a dime in it. They stuck whatever they needed to do to operate, so.
And personally, I think it was a good thing that you guys
Yep.
bought it, because now we're gonna have some parking over there, so. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, just one comment that the demolition will be going to our landfill, correct?
Correct, yep, and I believe that's gonna happen within the next 60 days, say something like that, the demolition.
They wanted to work on it yet this winter, so it's done by spring, and
Right.
so we can have further discussions.
I do have another question, it's probably more to Steve. When we tear this down and it goes to our landfill, that $65,000, how much, then we charge them at our landfill? Or we,
Demolition is charged at $8 a cubic yard. So
Okay.
as the trucks come through, how many trucks that building will fill will determine how much the tip fee is.
so then as far as county goes, we're getting some of that money back by putting it in our landfill of the 65,000?
The transfer of those
Yep,
resources.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Any more discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. I believe this will be a roll call. Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Mauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Opposed? All in favor? Passed.
All right. It's cold over there, just letting you know.
Okay, I think, should we do the committee reports first?
Yes, please.
All right, let's start out with Commissioner Jelinski.
Will you please do January 25th through February 12th?
All right, January 25th to February 12th.
On the 25th, 9 o'clock in the morning, I've got an Armor statewide leadership meeting, and that's at the MinDOT facility in St. Cloud. Sorry, I had kind of a lapse there. At 5 o'clock that same evening, in the middle school, there's a Stand Up For You meeting. 5:30 that same evening is an extension meeting, and that's in meeting room 2. And on the 26th, 5:30 in the evening, there's a cow-calf workshop at the Horizon Center in Piers. On the 27th, at 11 o'clock in the morning, I've got an executive committee meeting. And at 1 o'clock that same day, I've got the annual Emergency Services Board meeting.
And where's that at?
That's in St. Cloud at St. Cloud City Hall. On the 28th, I've got a dentist appointment, can't go to that.
Okay, let's put that down.
Yeah, nobody needs that one. On the 29th, there's an EMS Joint Powers Board meeting, and that's at Stearns County Service Center at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's February 29th. On the 2nd of February, at 8:30 in the morning, we should have a planning meeting. At 7 o'clock that evening, there should be a Board of Adjustments meeting. On the 4th of February at 10 o'clock in the morning, I've got a legislative conference call. On February 5th at 8:30 in the morning, we should have a TSWAC meeting. I'm not positive that I'll be able to attend this, but on the 6th of February at 7 o'clock in the evening in Piers, there's a Mississippi Valley Cattlemen's Association annual meeting. On the 9th of February, at 9 o'clock in the morning, we've got county board. 10th, there's a department head meeting. On the 11th, at 5:30, let's see. At 9:30 in the morning, there's an ACUB meeting. At 10 o'clock in the morning, I've got a meeting with Alexandria Vocational Technical College in regards to education of 911 centers. At 5:30 that same evening, there's a trails meeting at Camp Ripley. On the 12th of February, at 10 o'clock in the morning, there's a RAC meeting in Alexandria. Mr. Chair, I believe that's all I have.
All right, Commissioner Johnson.
Okay, I've got, on the 27th, drug court graduation, here at 1:30 in the afternoon. Thursday, the 28th, I've got a Region 5 meeting in Staples at 6 o'clock in the evening. On the 4th of February, I've got a South Country meeting in Owatonna at 8 in the morning until about noon. That's it.
Okay, Commissioner Wilson,
I'm
anything?
covered by those two.
All right, Commissioner Mauer?
I have HRA on the 26th at 11 in the morning. Let's see. That should be it.
Okay, and myself, I have two of them. On the 25th, there's that grant community meeting at Royalton High School that we just made a resolution on. That's at 6 o'clock on the 25th. I'll be attending that at the high school. And then I will be at the City Council Royalton meeting on the new gas station on Tuesday the 2nd at 7 p.m. They're trying to get us conditional use permit to add, go forward. Otherwise, I believe we got our own.
Do we have Board of Adjustment that night?
Yeah, I won't be able to make it.
Where's the new gas station?
It's gonna be, south of, on Highway 10, you know where the river, Platte River is? There's a little farmhouse, right before that would be the south end of Highway 10 on by the Platte River. He sold his place and they wanna annex it into the city of Royalton. And it's, it's a chain, they wanna put a gas station grocery store there,
Really?
so.
Really?
Is it in Morrison
Good.
County?
It's in Benton County,
Benton
but the
County.
city is gonna annex it into the, so the city, yeah, we won't, but again, it's,
It'll still be Benton County, but the city of Royalton, it'll
right,
become,
yep.
it'll become city.
Right, yep, so again, there's some opposition due to the trucks going by the high school, and so there's a meeting that night, so.
Very good.
All right, I guess then we should make a motion to close them, or to adjourn the meeting.
Mr. Chair, I just have one action item left, and that's
Okay.
executive session, closed executive session. Whereas Camp Ripley is currently operating a demo landfill without a license from the county in violation of the Morrison County Solid Waste Ordinance. And whereas the Morrison County Attorney has requested the opportunity to discuss litigation strategy with the Morrison County Board of Commissioners and has advised that the public discussion of such strategy would benefit the defendants and their counsel to the detriment of the board in the litigation. And whereas Morrison County Board of Commissioners desires to invoke the attorney-client privilege and discuss litigation confidentially with the county attorney. And whereas pursuant to Minnesota statute, section 13D.05 subdivision 3B, the board by resolution may close a meeting as permitted by the attorney-client privilege. Now therefore be it resolved, the Morrison County Board of Commissioners hereby closes the county board meeting on January 19th, 2016 in order to discuss the county attorney, the matter of Morrison County versus Richard C. Nash, Adjutant General of the Minnesota National Guard.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.